From his studios in New York, it's time for Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Here's your host, Dan Tortora.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com // wakeupcalldt. MixLR stands for mixliveradio.com / wakeupcalldt. That live feed is embedded on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage, so you can listen there as well. I appreciate each and every single one of you that listens into Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora here live Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m., as well as everybody who listens into the archive. And you can get that archive by going on to wakeupcalldt.com and going to the on-demand archive right underneath the MixLR feed. That'll give you Podbean, as well as TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, and so much more. So I appreciate you listening in. Right now, a good friend of mine is back onto the show, somebody who I have appreciated in the professional and personal world for about a decade now, and that is Dave Pasiak. He's a basketball coach and a basketball analyst. The basketball mind of Dave Pasiak I always appreciate speaking with on the bigger topics, the bigger things, and we have a lot to discuss today. So without further ado, let's bring him into the show. Dave, how are we doing today?
I'm good, Dan. It's been a bit. It's great to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's been a little while, and I had the opportunity to bump into you at the Syracuse Stallions game a few weeks back here, and just what you can say about what you think about pro basketball and the ABA being in Syracuse.
Well, I think, those guys, Mike Sigamosto, he's actually a former player of mine. Mike's the owner of the team, and, the coaches, Pete Dirtus and Tim Marshall, those guys are friends of mine, and Lloyd Parkman, one of their players, is also one of my former players. But I think they're doing it right. What I mean by that is, the ABA has tried and failed in Syracuse in the past. And, one iteration, they were playing in a war memorial, and, you could tell right from the get-go it was not going to be a sustainable model. I think what these guys are doing, they're in a right-sized venue at MPH to where, they draw a good crowd. It's a full house, and it feels like the place to be. It's the kind of thing where, 50 people go out to the club that holds 50 people. Everybody thinks that's the place to be in town. They go to the club that holds 500 people, and it's dead inside. So I think what those guys did, first of all, is they're in the right-sized venue, and they kind of followed a model that Binghamton has been using. Binghamton Bulldogs, Jimmy Evans. Jimmy's got an interest in the Stallions franchise too, but he got things going in Binghamton, and they followed the same blueprint. So I think they put out a good product and a fun evening for people to come out to, and you saw people there with their kids and everything, and youth ball at halftime, and so I think Mike and the Stallions people have really done a good job in carving out a niche in Syracuse, which can be a tough thing to do sometimes. Sometimes it's hard for other sports entities to get a whole lot of traction, and I give those guys a lot of credit for being able to do that marketing and at the end of the day putting a good product on the court.
That coming from Dave Pasiak here with us this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And Dave, you had since left Central Upstate New York, and obviously sad to see you go because of your expertise and your ability to recruit good players and build up a good team and do great things with that. But you have moved forward, and just how has everything been going for you since you've taken that next step, that next chapter, and that next part of your life? Just what you can say about what's going on for you and how you've kind of, developed here, and it's now Northern Vermont University, and you're the men's basketball head coach there and the sports information director. How's everything been over there for North Vermont University, Linden?
It's been busy. It's, being a basketball coach and being a sports information director at the same time, it's like wearing two full-time hats at once. So it's first and foremost, it's busy. But people up here are really nice. We're Northern Vermont, Lindenville, Vermont, probably I don't know, 35, 40 miles from the Canadian border up in the northeast kingdom of Vermont. So people are real nice. We got a lot of work to do in terms of getting our program to where we want it to be. Took the job a year ago. School had already started and whatnot. So this year is like our first recruiting class. And we've made a ton of progress in terms of building the right culture in our program. We're all about like kids representing the school and the program well and being respectful and working hard every day to be a great player and a great student and a great young man, most importantly, and being great teammates that are all about team. And we had, like, when I took the job here, the culture was quite honestly not very good. So we've really, with our recruiting class this year and the returning guys have made a lot of progress. We've got 3 seniors, senior night tonight for us actually. So we've made a lot of progress in that regard. On the court, we've become more competitive. We haven't made as much progress as we need to kind of be in the mix in our conference. I think we're, another good recruiting class away. Like I said, we had 9 freshmen, and they have really gotten better and better every day. And, coming down the stretch, we knocked off Maine Maritime, who's one of the better teams in our league, and took SUNY Canton to double overtime last weekend, who's again another one of the better teams in our league. So I think we're moving in the right direction on the court. It's just it's a process that takes a little bit of time. So we're excited about where we're headed, and looking forward to kind of making a jump in the next year, a couple of years, to where we're a team that's in the mix in our conference on a regular basis.
That coming here from Dave Pasiak. And like you said, it takes time, it takes work. You're doing 2 full-time jobs as being the sports information director as well as a head coach. And just what you can say about, going through that and having to do that, with a university that's gone through some changes. It used to be Linden, and then, became Northern Vermont University of Linden, and it's kind of split into 2 pieces. And just what you can say about, having that, having this bigger kind of umbrella of Northern Vermont University and having 2, different universities kind of come together, and how you've weathered that storm and kind of, your team is your team, but the changes that were going on around you.
Yeah. Like you said, Linden State College merged with Johnson State College became official last July to become Northern Vermont University. Still 2 campuses, 2 athletic programs, but under one university banner. Excuse me. I think it's, from an institutional standpoint and for our students, I think it's opened up a lot of opportunities, like academically, to do some more creative things. It's kind of moved to a Common Core curriculum, and like Linden is very much and has been very much a school that is very focused on pre-professional programs. We've got some kind of unique niche majors, from everything from exercise science to mountain rec to atmospheric science is a huge major here. And things like that. They're a little bit off the mainstream and are very much pre-professional. And Linden is very heavy on applied learning, internships, practical experiences being part of the academic model, versus Johnson is more of a traditional liberal arts campus, more of an emphasis on the arts and performing arts, visual arts, that kind of thing. So I think with the two campuses combined to become Northern Vermont, I think it's opened up some opportunities for students on both campuses to kind of be able to integrate what the opposite campus does well into their program and do some neat things. From an athletic standpoint, we're still 2 programs with 2 budgets and departments and all that kind of thing. So we compete against each other, even though we're under the same university banner.
And when you have that and kind of, go through that, you've had different changes that have happened, in your career. Where does this kind of link up with everything? I mean, how has it challenged you? How has it made you a better coach? How has it made you somebody who can maybe, kind of handle a bunch of different things at once or weather a storm? What has it done to grow you as a person, as an administrator in a way, and obviously as a coach?
Well, I think the thing that, like most colleges, and especially in the Northeast, the pool of available students is shrinking. So I think that, and we're also in a situation where, it's quite different from being in Syracuse, where, you walk out of practice and there's 30 high school games within a 20-minute drive that you can get to, or half an hour drive. Up here, if it isn't Linden Institute or St. Johnsbury Academy, like the next closest high school game is like an hour and a half. So we're casting a different net recruiting wise, and we've done well with New York State because obviously I have tons of ties and connections and whatnot. So we have 4 New York State kids in our program this year. And we're actively recruiting several others, to come in next fall. But it's, I'm learning like Vermont and New England and in the basketball landscape, and the recruitable areas for us, kind of in this part of the country. So that's certainly been, that's been, kind of a work in progress and something that we're learning as we're going. And, the other thing is, we're how do I want to put this? From a resource standpoint, there are other schools in our conference that have more than us, whether it be facilities, budget, recruiting money, that kind of thing. So I think you learn to, maximize your resources and, get the most out of what you have and play to your strengths from that standpoint. So you have to really be efficient with how you operate, I guess is the way I would put it. So so that's been something kind of just learning how to best navigate and best utilize the resources that we have.
That coming here from Dave Pasiak, a basketball mind and a basketball coach. He has the Linden Hornets out in the state of Vermont. Used to be here with us in central upstate New York and does venture back here. And we get the opportunity to see him again and always ventures back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We have a bunch of topics to get to, Mr. Pasiak, as we look at what's going on in the basketball world. I want to start with Kevin Durant versus the media. Now, the media wants to know what he's going to do. What is his future? Where's he going to go? Is he going to stay here? Is he going to go play with LeBron James? What does he want? And they're asking him this in the middle of the season. Well, Kevin Durant doesn't really pull punches, and he's let the media know very recently, hey, guess what, guys? I don't trust you guys. I don't like talking to you. What do you think about the current Kevin Durant versus the media and what it's all about?
Well, from a media standpoint, obviously it generates, audience, viewership, listenership, clicks online, that kind of thing. If it didn't, they wouldn't push the issue. Durant is, probably the second best player in the game, and one of the all-time greats. And he's just, if you track his career, it's been kind of interesting because when he was in Oklahoma City and he got his MVP, and he was like, the darling of the basketball world. Nice guy, memorable speech, like crediting his mom and all that. And then it's like the media and the basketball fandom, I think, kind of turned on him, and he played along with it a little bit when he left Oklahoma City and went to Golden State and everything. And he kind of became the, went from wearing the white hat to the black hat kind of thing. And, so he's been, I think since he's been to the Warriors, he's very much wants to be identified as the best player in the game and kind of respected and appreciated for what he's done as a player. And I think sometimes it, when he engages with the media, I think, again, I'm not inside his head, but it just comes across as like he gets a little frustrated that I think, some people discredit his accomplishments and his championship with the Warriors and all that kind of thing. And I think that comes out with how he deals with the media. On the flip side of it, I think, the media, like I said, it generates audience and clicks, and, it's what people talk about. And, we've kind of in this, the sports journalism, especially with online and, instant news, Twitter, message boards, posts and whatnot. I think we're kind of at a point where sometimes the game isn't the story as much. It's what's going on outside the game that that people talk about, and so that the media moves in that direction, and they get response from Durant, then they can play that up. So it's currently it's interesting because, like I said, when he was kind of on the rise as a player in OKC, he was kind of a media and a basketball world darling, and it's gone in the other direction a little bit. So
yeah, and we're seeing that. We're kind of seeing this change with with him, where he was getting noticed and respected and appreciated. Like you said, the media loved him, and in Oklahoma City, I mean, he was with the Seattle Supersonics, and then when that team folded and moved and it went out of Seattle, went to Oklahoma City, they were the worst team in the NBA. Then they got better and better. They credited him with that, and then it was, what's going on with him and what's going on with Russell Westbrook, and then when he decides to leave and go to the Warriors, he's a sellout, and then all of a sudden, people are speaking for him and against him and whatnot. So, I just ultimately, I think he's been through a lot, and, as a member of the media, by definition, but not by attitude or by the way I carry myself, as I can understand where he's coming from and what he's going through, in the sense of, people are speaking for him, and, he wanted to win a championship, and he wins a championship and he gets MVP, and then what do they want to do? They want to judge him for it, and they want to say that he doesn't deserve it, and, that it wasn't his because he got all this help and this, that, and the other thing. And so, I mean, my frustration for what he's gone through is, I think the reality of it all is he's had to deal with so much pressure and negativity, and when he finally achieved something that he wanted to achieve, he's been knocked for it. And then when he called his mom the real MVP, it became this meme and it became a joke when, his mother obviously matters to him. So, I think anybody in his situation, that speaks up. I mean, we've seen it. I've seen it on the local level. Trevor Cooney has spoken up for himself. Eric Dungy has spoken up for himself. Zaire Franklin. Guys get to a point where they're sick of people telling them who they are and what their team is and what they're about, and they have every right to stand up for themselves. So I think the media blowing this up like, oh, Kevin Durant hates us and he's a jerk. I think Kevin Durant is just saying, you know what, guys? If you want to know how I feel about something, ask me. And if I don't want to answer it, then move on. Exactly.
And it's a little bit like, and you probably can speak to this better than I can, but he reminds me a little bit of, kind of Dwight Howard, in the sense that early in Dwight Howard's career, he was like the smiling guy that everybody loved, and and then as his career moved on and he left Orlando, and then he became more and more of like a target, and you saw a different side of him. And I see a little bit of similarity with Durant, as he went from everybody's darling in OKC to kind of the target, and now he's lashing back because he doesn't like it, rightfully so in a lot of cases.
And I would tend to agree with that. I would say that Dwight did start out as the one that people wanted to kind of be around, and his attitude, and you could smile with him and have some fun with him, and he could joke around. But at the same time, I had the opportunity to be around him a lot, and covering the Orlando Magic and living in Orlando and seeing him game by game. And he likes Dwight Howard in a very, we should all love ourselves, but he was very Dwight Howard centric. And I think that, I don't know Kevin Durant's personality from being in a locker room and talking with him or anything like that, but I can say that Dwight Howard's personality was very much the look at me, I'm going to make you all wait for me, I'm the best, I'm this, it was just very egocentric, which kind of turned me off to Dwight Howard. But with Kevin Durant, I feel like he's always been the guy who just wants to go to work and do his job and be left alone, and I think his personality is different than Dwight Howard's. But I just don't understand the obsession with Kevin Durant. I mean, the guy is good. He gets the job done. He's successful. But, damn it, if you're not watching the games, Dave, if you're not watching Golden State play, you would think that he's already on the Lakers because that's all anybody talks about.
Right, and that's a good segue, I think, in something else we're going to talk about is, a lot of that is we've kind of become an environment where nothing sells like hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is this motif. I mean, ever since we saw the LeBron James to the Lakers move happen, that's all we've heard about. This is what the Lakers are going to be in the future. This is what you can look forward to with the Lakers. This is what the Lakers are going to have. This is who's going to be on the team. This is how good they're going to be. This is what they're going to do. I don't care. I want to talk about this season. I want to talk about the here and now. And it's annoying. It's frustrating. It's ridiculous. I mean, what do you take of all this? Like you said, nothing sells like hope. There's this hope that the Lakers are going to be this tremendous team, that they're going to put together a super team that's even more super than the Golden State Warriors, and that's all you hear about. Kawhi Leonard goes to Toronto, and they're like, well, enjoy him for a year. He's going to be in L.A., and Kevin Durant's going to be in L.A., and everybody's going to be in L.A. So, I mean, what do you think about all of this? Because it's legitimately been the narrative since before the season started, and it continues to be the narrative. Nobody cares about this season. Let's talk about next season. The Lakers are going to be really good next season. Hey, something really good is going to happen next season. And I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing about it.
Well, that's kind of been the case, with the Lakers. And I mean, how long have you been hearing that kind of stuff about the Knicks? About how they're, the Knicks this, the Knicks that. They're building for the future, and then they never sign anybody, and they've stunk.
Yeah.
So, it's a little bit of the same with the Lakers. One of the marquee franchises, and, I think, again, nothing sells like hope. The team's wasn't very good last year, isn't very good. And the other thing, the young guys haven't dealt with that well. And I think when LeBron got hurt, the team was exposed as not being very good. Now LeBron's back, and there's all kinds of turmoil.
Yeah, and I think, but wherever LeBron goes, and listen, he is a tremendous player, but wherever he goes, there always is drama. And you need to understand when you're on LeBron's team, you're on LeBron's team. LeBron James runs the show. LeBron James is the guy. LeBron James is the one that is going to, get all the hoopla. He's the one that's going to get the extensive contract, and everybody else is auditioning. And if there's any sign of that truth ever being the case, look at the Lakers in the offseason. They wanted to sign one-year deals with everybody. You got a guy in Julius Randle who wanted a 2-year deal, and they're like, no, you can go. But it's LeBron James, and then everybody's on American Idol singing for LeBron, and then they're preparing for the next year. And I think as good as LeBron is, when you're on a LeBron James team, it's never about you. It's never about the team. And, and there's a lot of turmoil. Now, listen, they win championships, and they go to the finals, and there's a lot of success that he brings. But I can only imagine that there's a lot of drama that comes with the fact of when you're playing with him, it's always about him.
Yeah. Well, it's about him. But it's about him in the context of what do we got to do to win a championship. So I think it takes I think a young team with LeBron at this stage in his career, and this is what I think we're seeing with the Lakers. These guys, their guys are trying to still kind of cut their teeth and prove themselves in the NBA. And then you've got, you got LeVar Ball stirring a pot in the media, and that's a whole nother, tentacle to the Lakers situation. But I think, the guys that seem to work with LeBron are like the veteran guys that kind of understand that he's the center of the team, and he can be a conduit to them contending for a championship, extending their career, getting their next contract, that kind of thing. I think when you got a young team like the Lakers, those guys are all like trying to make their own mark still. And that mix, I think, is really, really problematic,
Yeah.
Versus, when you have the veteran guys, whether it's the Ray Allens or the Dwayne Wades or the Kevin Loves or, Corver going to Cleveland, veteran guys like that I think, George Hill went there, and, those kind of guys, I think, are at a different stage of their career and recognize that you play with LeBron, he can extend my career and he can give me a chance to win a championship, Irving was more on the front end of that, and I think that's why, he wanted to get away from LeBron, because he's back to, or he's still at the place in his career where he wants to prove himself as being one of the elite players in the league. And as long as he's next to LeBron, he's always going to be the sidekick. So that's why I think you saw Kyrie wanting out of Cleveland. Whereas, other guys at a different stage of their career, I think more accept and embrace and are comfortable with, playing the supporting role to LeBron.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good point. Speaking here with basketball coach and analyst Dave Pasiak here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I think that that's a great point. When you're dealing with these younger guys that are trying to make their mark, or you're dealing with somebody in the case of Kyrie Irving, where he was the face of the franchise. When that comes about itself, then I think that's where the issue therein arises. Is if you're on a team where you're already the leader. And I think the only one that really could deal with it was Dwayne Wade. But, to be put in kind of the wake of LeBron James, Chris Bosh obviously went through some health stuff, but he was the guy in Toronto, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. Dwayne Wade, it's never been the same since then. I know he's gotten older, but, he was the guy, and then he's not. And I think Miami will always love him. But you kind of fade off into the distance. And I think in Kyrie Irving's sense it was like, I've seen kind of LeBron leech on to the other superstars and kind of suck the life out of their career. So I need to get out of here before that happens to me. And I need to go show that I could still be the guy. And I think that he's had a lot of success, moving on to Boston and showing what he could do there. But, I mean, it's kind of like, Dave, if you're going to play with LeBron, what are you willing to give up? Because you never really get back to superstar status when you play with LeBron. So you may win a championship, but your career changes. You change. These guys don't make, necessarily the same amount of money after that. They're not looked at the same. So it's kind of a catch-22 of, how are we going to handle this? Do we, you want to win a championship, you want to play with one of the greats, but do you ever get looked at the same? And will anybody ever let you lead their team moving forward? And I think that's, kind of where things are at is, what are you willing to do to play with LeBron James?
Well, Kyrie's an interesting case study in that because, Kyrie goes to Boston. Boston signs him and Hayward, and they both are injured, and the Celtics have a nice run with a young team. And now the expectation was this year, well, you add back in Hayward, you add back in Kyrie, they should be LeBron's no longer in the East. They should be the runaway favorites, and it hasn't really played out that way.
Right.
It may when playoff time comes, but if Boston falls short of expectations, Kyrie's the guy that's going to take the heat for that. He's going to be the guy that you couldn't elevate what was a conference final game 7 conference final team, and we add you to the mix, and we're not as good. So he's going to be an interesting case study in that to see. He wanted to be the guy and wanted to be a guy who could lead, and he's put himself into that situation. And he's going to be maxed in the open market. It'd be interesting to see whether Boston keeps him as the centerpiece of their team, or Boston would make a play for Anthony Davis in a heartbeat, even if it meant losing Kyrie. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
And what do you think about, kind of going to that? You brought up Anthony Davis. What do you think about what happened essentially between, happened or didn't happen with the Pelicans and the Lakers? Do you think that ultimately, there's different stuff that has come out, but do you think that the Pelicans were trying to disrupt an already disruptive family in LA?
Well, it seems like there's a little bit of ill will between the two franchises from a ownership management standpoint. So if you believe what you read and what you hear, when Davis puts it out there through his agent that he doesn't want to entertain staying in New Orleans and he wants to go to the Lakers. And, the agent is probably the biggest culprit, in this whole soap opera with, Anthony Davis and the Lakers. But so they put it out there, and, you got to believe it's coming from within New Orleans organization that, they're leaking it out there that this guy and that guy and this, they're proposing this trade, that trade, anybody on the roster but LeBron. And I'm sure that there's at least some degree of intent to disrupt the Lakers. You compare the whole thing with Anthony Davis and the Lakers to Tobias Harris going to Philadelphia. There was not a peep of that deal until the trigger was pulled.
Right.
Nobody had that coming. Nobody saw that coming. There was no mention of him being on the trade block. Nothing was out there. The two teams worked out a deal. Nobody leaked it until it was time to pull the trigger on the deal. Versus the Anthony Davis and the Lakers thing, it's like every couple hours you're seeing a different, somebody tweeting something different, putting something different on Twitter about, this package, that package. Here's what the Lakers are offering now. And my gut feeling, if you believe a lot of what you read, is that was coming from the New Orleans side, like in an attempt to mess with the Lakers, the same way Anthony Davis going on the record saying he's not resigning and wants to go to LA, clearly had a negative effect on the Pelicans. So.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just a very kind of interesting situation and scenario when we hear things like this, and because of social media, things can change in an instant. And I mean, what do you think about that? You and I have spoken about it before, but from the perspective of the fact that social media can create kind of this back and forth and whatnot. I mean, what do you think about it in relative to this situation or to any of these situations in the NBA where players can give their thoughts and, front office staff can give their thoughts and other guys can respond to it and whatnot? You could be a team that thinks, hey, we have Anthony Davis, we're safe, he loves it being here, and then he might put something up on Twitter that says, man, nobody's loyal anymore. And then all of a sudden it's a giant international story, and why did he write that? Then you think it's because of you. So, I mean, there's a lot of drama now that goes through social media. What do you think about that aspect?
Well, it's certainly kind of changed our landscape in our world. It comes back down to the player and his representation a little bit. Go back to LeBron. Everybody knew his contract was up at the end of the year, but it wasn't the dominant story all of last year. He waited till after the season. Play out your contract and sign whatever deal you choose to sign. Kyrie Irving, it was after the season. Came out that he wasn't going to re-up or didn't want to stay in Boston or in Cleveland. I guess I have an issue with it. On the one hand, I think if Davis has no intention of re-signing with the Pelicans, I think he's an upfront guy by going to the organization and say, hey, I'm just telling you I'm not re-signing at the end of my contract, so you can move forward accordingly. And the Pelicans are, not without some blame either. I mean, they let Cousins get away, they let Rondo get away. So I mean, they kind of didn't do their part as far as keeping a team that was seemed to be tracking in the right direction, keeping that team together and adding to it. Instead, they let a couple of really core pieces go. But the problem I have with it is Davis or Davis's people being so public about it in the middle of the season. You're under contract, play out your contract. If you have no intention of re-signing, it's a stand-up thing to tell the organization so they can, plan accordingly. But, I think that Davis and his representation being so upfront about it and so public about it, like in mid-season, I have an issue with that.
No, and I can understand that. And I think, we've kind of lost that personal responsibility, and we've lost the art of, obviously, be good to the one. If you're not going to leave the dance with, the one you brought, at least dance with them, or at least respect the fact that you brought them there. And maybe in the future, maybe the day after the dance, you're not dancing with that person anymore, but that's who you brought, and that's who you need to take home, and that's who you need to make sure, gets to where they need to go safely and soundly. So, to me, we're living in a world where people don't, I don't want to say everybody, because it's not everybody. I know a lot of good people, and I always want to believe there's more good than bad in the world. We are in a society where personal responsibility with some people doesn't exist. It's not even a term. And I think that, when it comes down to it, is you might not want to be here, and you might not want to do this, you may not want to do that. But this is the team that paid you. This is the team that spent their time and their due diligence on you. They have helped you to live the life that you want to live, and even better than that over the years. So at the very least you can do is respect them enough to pull them aside and have a meeting face-to-face and sit down with them before you say anything, do anything, or before your agent starts running their mouth. And I just feel like this should not be a course that you have to teach in school, but maybe it should. Maybe we have to teach etiquette, because I feel like in today's day and age, and you look at Le'Veon Bell, look at that situation. He was saying something, he's not allegedly not talking to the Steelers. They're not talking to him. Ben Roethlisberger's calling him. He's not answering. Then he says stuff on social media. Then he does interviews that say he's doing this, and then he does the other thing. Then his agent saying something totally different than what he's saying. Agent's like, he'll be back then. He's saying publicly, I didn't tell my agent that. It just seems like things have gotten out of control, and that your representation, in the case of Le'Veon Bell, isn't even speaking on your behalf at times, it seems like, unless you call up your agent and say, hey, let's create this frenzy. You say this and I'll say that. It seems out of control. Yeah, it does. And, at the end of the day, if you want the ability to move all the time, then sign short deals, Davis signed he's under contract to the Pelicans, live up to the terms of your contract, fulfill it, and then, it's your right to go out and get whatever deal you want. But, don't make that the issue while you're under contract to that franchise. Exactly. And I think that, and you talk about, if you want to leave or if you want to move forward and whatnot, and that's one of the topics I want to get to here before we wrap up. Speaking here with basketball coach and analyst Dave Pasiak, and that's college players transferring. Not just in basketball, but in football. In football, it's run rampant now. The transfer portal is loaded. I feel like the transfer portal for college football is going to crash at some point. But we're seeing all of these changes. We're seeing, everybody wants to move and do this and do that. And if they go on a team and they're there for, in the case of Syracuse, Chance Amy comes in here as a true freshman this season. And I'm not going to pretend to know his situation, because him and I have never spoken. But Chance Amy comes in to Syracuse, and there's Eric Dungy. Eric Dungy's the starting quarterback when you come in. That's if you don't know, then you're not paying any attention. So he's the guy. Tommy DeVito steps in. He's doing good. The thought of Tommy being the future, obviously that comes up. This kid is redshirted. He doesn't play. He's got 4 years of eligibility, and he goes, nah, I'm leaving Syracuse. And then we look at other situations like Kelly Bryant. I'm the starting quarterback. And then they brought in Trevor Lawrence. Well, I'm the starter. I should be the starter. I'm the guy. Okay, well, compete for your job. No, I'm going to go somewhere else. And then that week, we see an injury to Trevor Lawrence, and Kelly Bryant could have played for a week or two. But, it's just, there's those situations. There's the grad transfers that happens a lot. But, what are your thoughts on this? Because we're seeing college basketball players go to 3 different teams before graduating. We're seeing college football players not even spend a full calendar year at a school and going somewhere else and opening their recruitment right after they sign their national letter of intent. What are your thoughts on the fact that we now have college free agency? Well, first of all, it's ironic that you said something about the transfer portal crashing, because last night I was trying to look up a kid on there, and it did indeed crash. Well, there you go.
But I think it's a byproduct of our society today about instant gratification, and the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And if the kids that work through and persevere and develop and carve out their niche in a program, it's easier to just say, I'm going to transfer. Coach doesn't like me, or I'm going to transfer rather than earn my keep. The way our society is, I don't see it going in a different direction. And if you hear a lot of the pundits out there, they kind of play into this. Well, kids shouldn't even have to sit. If coaches can go, kids should go. Blah blah blah. So, and there are legitimate reasons for transfer sometimes. Whether it be fit within the program, or academic issues, or need to be closer to home because of a family situation. I mean, there are legitimate reasons for kids to transfer, but a lot of the times it's like, rather than work to get better, I'm going to transfer. Rather than continuing to develop my craft and whatnot, I'm going to transfer. So that has kind of become, and it's not limited to college. You see the high school stuff. Kids leaving high schools. That's why honestly, and I hope he ends up being a great player. I love Joe Girard. And I've met him a couple of times, and met his dad, and they're very nice people, but I can't say that I know him, so to speak, but he's a guy, who's, worked his tail off to become obviously a tremendous player, and everybody was in his ear about, you got to go to prep school, blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't play football, blah, blah, blah. Like his guy, he stayed in his hometown, in his high school, continued to play football, stayed kind of true to what he was, and he's turned out just fine. He's going to, one of the premier basketball programs in the ACC in the country, and, just kind of was loyal to his school and his town and his community. And so I really respect that about him, and I really hope that he develops into a tremendous player at Syracuse. But guys like that are few and far between. I think we developed that culture. The club basketball circuit has contributed to that. You're on an AAU team and you don't like, you play for this team this weekend. I don't like where I'm at. I'm going to go play for another team next weekend. And it's become more of it's about me right now, instant gratification, and less about committing to a team and a culture and an environment and working to get better.
Right, and to me, it's kind of a joke now. I mean, it's you wanna believe, but you look at these. I mean, in the case of Tate Martell, who's a quarterback out in Ohio State. I mean, here he is. He got to play a little bit, in kind of garbage time and whatnot behind Dwayne Haskins, and then Dwayne Haskins is gone, and they bring in Fields. And Tate Martell's like, well, I'm out. But he's got to sit out a year and go to Miami. So now he's not going to play football for the better part of 2 years. And, you spend all that time. There's all these schools going after him. There's all of these schools that want him to be their future quarterback. And he says yes to Ohio State. And the Ohio State fans saw him for about 14 minutes, and he's gone. And now Miami, now Miami's like, oh, hell, we got this guy. He's going to be great. But, you're not going to see him for at least a year. And then, what if your quarterback this year plays really well? And what if he doesn't make sense there? So, I totally understand guys having to leave for certain situations. And I completely understand when, a guy doesn't like, if a coach leaves that they had, dedicated themselves to, or if something happens within the university, or maybe there's a postseason ban or whatever that may be. I totally get that, and I totally understand those situations. But I'm here, and I don't really want to fight for my job, and this is kind of BS, and I'm out. It's like, dude, when you go to the NFL, you're going to have to fight for your job. You're going to have to earn it. There are thousands and thousands of players Every single year in free agency, thousands and thousands of players internationally trying to get in, thousands and thousands of players trying to come from the CFL, thousands and thousands of players trying to come from college football, all trying to take spots of guys that are already in the NFL on that 53-man roster. So you're going to have to compete for every single job that you get. And to say in the beginning, I don't know Tate Martell's complete situation, but I'm making a broad scope here, using it as an example that if you just keep moving and keep moving and keep moving, guess what? I mean, if I'm an NFL team and I tell you that I'm going to draft you, but you're going to have to wait a year or two behind such and such, are you going to be a problem in my locker room? And I think that that's what it comes down to, is there are so many reasons why you can transfer, why it makes sense. But if you're transferring because you don't want to wait, if you're transferring because you don't want to compete, if you're transferring because you want to stomp your foot down because, mommy gave me everything and you're supposed to give me everything, then I think we got a problem here, Dave.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And, I don't care whether it's a basketball coach, a football coach, baseball coach, soccer coach, tennis coach, whatever. There's no coach in the country that's going to sit you down and say, hey, you're playing too good today, I'm going to play this other guy. You know, so go out and earn your, the better guy, the better girl is going to play, So, you got two choices, either compete and get better, or, what more and more kids, unfortunately, are doing is, let's take the easy way out, and it's, I don't want to work for my keep, so I'll go somewhere else. And, sometimes those things work out, but sometimes, guys are back in the same situation, and that's where you'll see the kid with, 3 schools in 4 years or something like that. It's unfortunately, it's like a kind of a sad commentary on where we're at as a society,
Yeah.
It's just, I think we've hovercrafted kids and run cover for kids to a point where they don't feel like they have to kind of compete and work to get better. And, it's supposed to be instant gratification, like the video game or something, So that's a frustrating thing. And, it's in athletics, it's in society with young people.
Yeah, and I think it's sad. And I think that, we obviously have to learn. If you want something, you got to work for it. And you got to work for it every single day. So it's just the reality of it all. The final piece here that I want to get to here, speaking of working for something every single day, Dave, and this is a team, the Toronto Raptors have, they've become a new look. They had one of my favorites of all time, DeMar DeRozan, and they decided to let him go for Kawhi Leonard and also Danny Green, which nobody talks about, and they should, because I like Danny Green. But and I think he's a tremendous player. And then you have Jonas Valanciunas and DeLon Wright, C.J. Miles, second-round pick, and you go over to the Grizzlies and you say, hey, Grizzlies, we like that guy Marc Gasol. We think that he should come on to our team. So now Marc Gasol is a Raptor. Now the Raptors are making these moves. You got to think about this, folks. Raptors are notorious for doing nothing. The Raptors are notorious for the definition of insanity, just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. They're the second best team, only a game behind the Milwaukee Bucks. They're 42-16. The Bucks are 42-14, 1-2 in the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee and Toronto. So they're a good team, and they've been number one for a while in the East, last year, this year. But they decide, hey, you know what? As good as we are and as much as we've done, we needed Kawhi. And as good as we are and as much as we've done, we need Marc Gasol. What do you think about what the Toronto Raptors are doing right now, and are they making the right moves?
Well, whether they're making the right moves or not, will just to be seen once playoff time rolls around. But the thing I'll say about the Raptors, they made a kind of a controversial move to dump Dwayne Casey last year, and so I think that on the one hand, I'll give the organization credit. From the standpoint of they felt like standing pat was not going to get them to the top of the mountain. So I give them credit for making aggressive moves and, going out and getting Leonard with no assurance that you're going to have him past this season. The Gasol trade. I mean, you picked up I mean, Valanciunas, I like him and everything, but I mean, that's clearly an upgrade for them. I think they made an under-the-radar move that's going to pay off for them by signing Jeremy Lin off of a release and sign deal recently. So I think he'll give them good depth in the backcourt. So, excuse me. So I think they made some aggressive moves that seem to make sense, and it's an interesting time because for years with LeBron, with Cleveland and Miami, there was a sense that no matter what anybody else did, it was LeBron's world, and you had a ceiling, and that ceiling was Eastern Conference Finals. Now with LeBron gone, the Cavaliers broken up, I think there's a real sense that the East is there for the taking. So I think you see Toronto. I think you see Milwaukee making a move. You see Philly making moves. I think teams think that there's a window of opportunity to strike now, and they're trying to be really aggressive and capitalize on that. So I give the Raptors credit for making aggressive moves that they may not work out, but they may also catapult them to a level that they haven't been able to get to before.
Yeah, we're seeing, like you said, Jeremy Lin coming onto the team, a free agent, and Norman Powell, who they built up through their system. Serge Ibaka, obviously bringing him in 2017 with a trade with Orlando, who only kept him for a season. Then you have Marc Gasol, who's come in recently, Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green, Kyle Lowry. I mean, it's a different look team, and now it's strange because Kyle Lowry is really like the old face on the team, and then everybody else, is newer, from Serge Ibaka to Kawhi Leonard to Danny Green to Marc Gasol and so on and so forth. But this is a team that said, you know what, like you said, we can't be status quo. What we're doing is good, but it's not enough. We need to get better, and in order to get better, we're going to have to make some changes. Now, Nick Nurse, by every stretch of the imagination, is not a bad coach. And, Ryan Blackwell spoke with me about this. He was his coach. Ryan Blackwell had worked with him before, worked under him as a player, and that was his coach overseas. So, Nick Nurse is no slouch, and I think that, we're seeing that now. And I think that we're seeing that, as much as the DeMar DeRozan move hurt personally, because, I think a lot of people that are Toronto fans and, obviously me and being connected with the team since they came in 95, it's hard to see somebody go who says this is where I want to be, because you don't hear that all too often with Toronto. But I can't help but look at them and say they're winning. They're a game out of first place, and the moves that they're making are making sense. And could it be that they are setting up this deal and setting up this package and doing what they're doing the way that they're doing it to tell Kawhi when it's all said and done, why would you leave this place? So I think Toronto is, trying to win a championship, obviously. But I also think that from day zero, if you look at any of their social media, especially, you look at their Twitter and whatnot, they've done everything in their power to show Kawhi that this is a destination and not just part of the journey.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I liken it a lot to, when Paul George was shipped to Oklahoma City. Nobody had any expectation of him staying there beyond the one season, but they created an environment where once he was there, it's hard for him to leave. And I think Toronto is trying to do the same thing with Kawhi. They're trying to win now, no question about it. But I think they're also trying to create an environment with Kawhi where it's going to be really hard for him to leave. And, so I give him credit for that as well. And, if that pays off, like if Kawhi re-signs with them, then all these moves have been tremendous. If Kawhi doesn't re-sign with them, then the Raptors are in a really precarious place. But I still, like I said, I think they, along with 3 or 4 other teams in the East, all see opportunity, and I give them credit for going for it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That coming from Dave Pasiak, and we'll see where things go from here. Dave, the conversation always opens doors to more, and I look forward to the opportunity of having this continued conversation with you as we step forward here further and further into the season. I wish you the best with everything that you're doing to build up the program with the Linden Hornets, and I look forward to the opportunity of having you back on the show very soon.
Thanks, Dan. Look forward to speaking again soon.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
That coming once again from Dave Pasiak, the head coach for the Linden Hornets, as well out in the state of Vermont, as well as a basketball mind and analyst. I consider him to be one of the best conversations we have here on the show always. So thank you to Dave Pasiak.